Minecraft movie seats stolen. You won't believe what happened. The Minecraft movie. I hadn't been this excited about something in years. It was pure nostalgia. Liam, my best friend since elementary school, had been blowing up my phone for weeks. Chloe, my girlfriend, rolled her eyes good-naturedly at our obsession, but even she admitted she was looking forward to it. We'd pre-booked our tickets the second they went on sale. Prime seats, center row, perfect view. This was serious business. I spent the afternoon meticulously planning our pre-movie snack run. Sour straws? Check. Extra large popcorn with butter? Absolutely. A strategically concealed bag of gummy bears? Essential. Chloe just shook her head as I packed everything into my backpack, muttering something about me being worse than a soccer mom. We arrived at the multiplex an hour early, the lobby already buzzing with excited moviegoers. A surprising number were decked out in Minecraft gear creeper hoodies, pickaxe keychains, even a guy wearing a full Steve costume. Liam, naturally, was sporting his I Dig Minecraft t-shirt, which I swear he'd owned since 2012. Brenda, the ticket taker, barely glanced at our phones before waving us through. The smell of popcorn and stale soda hung heavy in the air. We found our theater and pushed through the heavy doors, our excitement bubbling over. And then we saw them. Two figures were sprawled out in our seats, feet propped up on the chairs in front. The guy, a textbook Chad, slicked back hair, popped collar, and an air of entitled arrogance, was scrolling through his phone. The girl, Brittany, was equally polished and radiating disdain. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my voice polite. "I think you're in our seats. We have reservations." Chad barely glanced up. "Huh, oh, didn't see any names. There are literally reserved signs taped to the headrests," Liam pointed out, his voice already rising. Brittany scoffed. "Relax, it's just a movie. Find somewhere else to sit." "These are our seats," I insisted, trying to maintain a semblance of calm. "We booked them weeks ago." I held up my phone, displaying our confirmation. Chad finally deigned to look at the reservation. He smirked. "So, we're already here. What's the big deal?" The usher, a bored-looking teenager named Kevin, shuffled over. "Everything okay here?" "These people are in our seats," I explained, frustration creeping into my voice. "We have reservations." Kevin shrugged. "Yeah, sometimes that happens. Just gotta find some other seats." "But we specifically reserved these seats," Chloe interjected, her usual calm demeanor starting to crack. "Sorry," Kevin said, completely unconcerned. "Nothing I can do. Maybe check with the manager." He wandered off, leaving us standing there, dumbfounded. "Unbelievable," Liam muttered, clenching his fists. "Seriously, they just get to steal our seats," Chloe sighed. "Let's just find other seats, guys. It's not worth the hassle." "No way," Liam said, his eyes flashing. "We're not letting them get away with this." I hated confrontation. I was a software developer, not a bouncer. But something about their blatant disregard for us, their smug entitlement, ignited a spark of anger I rarely felt. "Okay," I said, my voice surprisingly firm. "We're not moving." Chad and Brittany rolled their eyes in unison. "Suit yourselves," Chad said, turning back to his phone. "Enjoy the front row." We ended up in the very front row, craning our necks to see the screen. The preview started, and Chad and Brittany proceeded to talk loudly, oblivious to the glares from other moviegoers. I felt a knot of frustration tightening in my stomach. Liam was practically vibrating with rage. "I can't believe this," he hissed. "We need to do something." Chloe tried to placate him. "Just let it go, Liam. It's just a movie." But I couldn't let it go. The feeling of being wronged, of being dismissed and disrespected, was gnawing at me. Then, during a particularly loud preview for some superhero movie, an idea hit me. A ridiculous, petty, but potentially brilliant idea. Years ago, back in college, I'd messed around with audio streaming and network manipulation. I'd even created a program that could inject custom sounds into online audio streams. It was a useless skill, but right now it felt like my moment. I leaned over to Liam and whispered my plan. His eyes widened and a grin spread across his face. "Dude," he said, barely containing his laughter. "That's genius." Chloe, however, looked horrified. "Are you serious? You're going to, what, hack the movie theater?" "Not exactly hack," I explained, trying to downplay the technical aspects. "More like, subtly enhance their moviegoing experience." The movie was about to start. I had to act fast. I pulled out my phone, my fingers flying across the screen. Luckily, the theater offered free Wi-Fi. I connected and opened a browser window. I'd already preloaded a simple web page with the necessary code. It was a janky, cobbled-together solution, but it was the best I could do on short notice. The plan was simple, in theory. I would use the theater's Wi-Fi to broadcast a specific, incredibly annoying sound affect a high-pitched, repetitive cave ambience sound from Minecraft directly to Chad and Brittany's phones. The trick was to make it subtle, infrequent, and almost subliminal, so that they wouldn't be able to pinpoint the source or prove that I was doing it. The movie started and the opening credits rolled. Time to execute. I tapped the start button on my phone. Nothing. I checked the code, frantically debugging. A syntax error. I quickly corrected it and tried again. Still nothing. My heart sank. Had I missed something? Was the Wi-Fi too slow? Then a faint, high-pitched whine filled the air. I held my breath, watching Chad and Brittany. They didn't seem to notice anything at first. They were too busy talking. But then, a few seconds later, Brittany frowned. She looked around, her eyes narrowing. Chad glanced at her, then back at the screen. I waited, my pulse racing. A few more seconds passed and the sound returned, slightly louder this time. A distinct eerie cave ambience sound. Chad shifted in his seat. He glanced at Brittany, then at his phone. He seemed confused. Brittany nudged him. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" Chad replied, his voice slightly annoyed. "That weird noise. Like a beeping." I didn't hear anything. I suppressed a grin. It was working. The sound faded, then returned a minute later, even more prominent. This time, both Chad and Brittany reacted. They exchanged confused glances, their conversation forgotten. "There it is again," Brittany hissed. "What is that?" Chad pulled out his phone and started tapping on it, presumably checking his notifications. "Probably just your phone being stupid," he muttered. "It's not my phone," Brittany snapped. "I think it's coming from somewhere else." The sound continued, intermittently, like a persistent, invisible mosquito buzzing around their heads. It was subtle enough to be easily dismissed, but persistent enough to be incredibly irritating. Chad and Brittany's annoyance grew with each passing minute. They started fidgeting in their seats, their eyes darting around the theater. They checked their phones repeatedly, trying to identify the source of the noise. I watched them from the corner of my eye, trying to maintain a poker face. Liam was practically shaking with laughter, while Chloe looked a mixture of amused and horrified. After about 15 minutes of this audio torture, Chad finally snapped. He stood up abruptly, his face flushed with anger. "Excuse me," he shouted, his voice echoing through the theater. "Can anyone else hear that glitching sound? It's driving me crazy." A few people turned to look at him, but most ignored him. The movie was getting intense. "It sounds like something's wrong with the audio system," Chad continued, addressing the entire theater. "Someone needs to fix it." Kevin, the usher, sauntered over, looking even more bored than before. "What's the problem, dude?" "There's a weird glitching sound. It's ruining the movie," Chad exclaimed, his voice dripping with indignation. Kevin shrugged. "I don't hear anything." "Well, I hear it," Chad insisted. "And it's incredibly annoying." Kevin sighed. "I'll check the system," he said, reluctantly heading towards the back of the theater. While Kevin fiddled with the sound system, Chad stood there, glaring at the screen, his face a mask of fury. Brittany looked mortified, trying to shrink into her seat. Of course, Kevin found nothing wrong. The sound system was working perfectly. The problem, as Chad was slowly beginning to realize, wasn't with the theater. It was something else entirely. Kevin returned, shaking his head. "Everything seems fine," he said. "Maybe it's just your imagination." "My imagination?" Chad sputtered. "I'm telling you there's a glitch." "Look, I don't know what to tell you," Kevin said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "Just try to enjoy the movie." He turned and walked away. Chad was now visibly enraged. He turned to Brittany, his voice tight with frustration. "Did you hear anything while he was checking?" Brittany glared at him. "Maybe if you weren't yelling, I could have heard something." "This is your fault," Chad snapped. "If you hadn't insisted on stealing those seats." "Oh, so now it's my fault," Brittany retorted. "Maybe if you weren't such a loudmouth, we wouldn't be having this problem." Their bickering escalated, their voices rising above the dialogue of the movie. Other moviegoers started to shush them. I glanced at Liam and Chloe. They were both struggling to contain their laughter. I, however, was feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and guilt. Was I taking this too far? But then I remembered how they had treated us, how they had dismissed our feelings and stolen our seats. And the guilt quickly faded. Chad, now completely beside himself, stormed out of the theater. Brittany stayed behind, looking miserable. A few minutes later, Chad returned, accompanied by a woman who looked like she was in charge and a security guard. The manager, whose name tag reads Susan, looked harried. "What seems to be the problem?" Susan asked, her voice weary. "This guy," Chad said, pointing at the screen, "says there's a glitch in the audio." Susan sighed. "We checked the system," she said. "Everything's working fine, but I can still hear it," Chad insisted. "It's like a high-pitched beeping sound. It's driving me crazy." Susan looked at the security guard, who shrugged. "Sir," Susan said, turning back to Chad, "if you continue to disrupt the movie, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Chad's face turned a shade of purple. "You're kicking me out," he sputtered. "I'm the one who's complaining about the problem, sir. We've investigated your complaint, and we haven't found any evidence of a malfunction," Susan said, her voice firm. "If you can't behave yourself, you'll have to leave." Chad was now caught in a catch-22. If he continued to complain, he would be kicked out. But if he stayed, he would have to endure the incessant beeping. He glared at Susan, then at the security guard, then at the screen. Finally, with a defeated sigh, he slumped back into his seat. Just as Susan was about to leave, I decided to turn the screw one last time. I subtly increased the frequency and intensity of the Minecraft cave sound. Chad flinched. He looked around wildly, his eyes darting from person to person. Then his gaze landed on me. "It's you," he shouted, pointing his finger directly at me. "You're doing this," I feigned shock and indignation. "Me? What are you talking about?" Liam jumped to my defense. "Hey, leave him alone," he shouted. "What's your problem?" Chloe put her hand on my arm, feigning concern. "Are you okay, Alex?" Susan and the security guard rushed over. "What's going on here?" Susan demanded. "He's accusing me of sabotaging the movie," I said, my voice dripping with innocence. "That's ridiculous," Liam added. "He's just being paranoid." Chad was sputtering, his face red with fury. "I know it's him," he insisted. "He's the one making that noise." Susan looked at me, then at Liam, then at Chloe. She saw nothing but innocent faces. "Sir," she said to Chad, her voice laced with warning, "I'm going to have to ask you to calm down. If you continue to make false accusations, I will have to ask you to leave." Chad was trapped. He knew he couldn't prove anything. He knew that I was somehow responsible for the incessant beeping, but he had no way to stop it. He glared at me one last time, his eyes filled with hatred. Then, with a defeated sigh, he turned back to the screen. Susan and the security guard left, shaking their heads. The movie continued, and the Minecraft cave sound continued, intermittently, driving Chad slowly insane. For the rest of the movie, Chad and Brittany sat in silence, their faces etched with misery. They barely even glanced at the screen. They were too preoccupied with the incessant, invisible beeping. As we left the theater, Liam clapped me on the back. "Dude," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "That was amazing, you totally owned them." Chloe shook her head, but a small smile played on her lips. "I can't believe you actually did that," she said. "You're a madman." I just shrugged, feeling a surge of satisfaction. It was petty, it was childish, but it was incredibly satisfying. We had been wronged, and we had gotten our revenge. As we walked out of the multiplex, we saw Chad and Brittany storming towards their car, still arguing. Their date night was officially ruined. We, on the other hand, had a great time. The movie was actually pretty good, and the added bonus of tormenting Chad and Brittany made it even better. Back at my apartment, Liam and I celebrated with pizza and Minecraft. Chloe just shook her head and went to bed, muttering something about me needing to grow up. But I didn't care. I had stood up for myself. I had gotten my revenge, and I had enjoyed a Minecraft movie premiere in peace. It was a good night. A few days later, I received a scathing email from the movie theater, complaining about disruptive behavior and unsubstantiated noise complaints. I deleted it without responding. Some victories are best left unspoken.